Okay, welcome back to the channel, Generals and Admirals. This is General Johnny coming back at you again with another video on my favorite RTS game right now, which is Broken Arrow. And today we're gonna go over what I think is the key to success in this game. And I don't think I'm particularly amazing at this game, and I'm trying to improve. And I think with a lot of real-time strategy games, it comes down to um, not necessarily how good you're at the game, but how much knowledge you have uh, based off of the units, based off of how the units work, and really just the capabilities that are at your fingertips when you're trying to make these kind of decisions in these kind of games. So if you're new to the channel, again, General Johnny Strategy, where I go over real-time strategy tips, and that's exactly what we're going to do today with Broken Arrow. We're going to uncover the key to becoming not just a good player, but a great player today. The content around Broken Arrow is pretty saturated right now with how-to guides and different tips, and a lot of them focus on the capabilities. So what this unit does, what that unit does, and what can counter it, what their stats are as far as HP, as far as scouting range, as far as stealth, all sorts of things, and all really important. But the only problem is, for a lot of RTS players and a lot of RTS games in general, is you just got to learn by kind of playing with each of the units, learning how they react, how they perform in battlefield situations and scenarios. So that brings me really to the key point of this whole entire video is what I think is key to becoming a great player in Broken Arrow is you have to use the editor. So the scenario editor, as you can see, I have a few set up here, but I'm gonna run you through how to use this editor really to your advantage and learn and test those capabilities, but not only the capabilities, but how you're actually gonna play in the game. So if you're brand new to the game and you're just wondering what does what, I'll show you a real quick, easy way to do it within the editor. And I promise you, it's a very daunting task at first. You're gonna open up, you're not gonna know what any of the buttons are, but hopefully I show you a way to kind of practice through it. And really, I think after 30-40 minutes of messing around with it, so just the amount of time that you would spend playing a regular game, you can really test things out and learn the mechanics and kind of the statistics behind the game. Before we get started, I'll go ahead and hit the agenda, the intro. Next thing we're going to go over are the basics of the editor. So how to open it up, what the basic functions are, what you need to know to get your feet on the ground, get your toes wet, and start making some scenarios to practice on. And then lastly, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go over a quick scenario and how to use it to your benefit. So without further ado, we'll get this one started. So when you're in the intro screen, you're going to go over here to the right where it says editor. And the first thing you're going to look at, you'll have the official content. You can really just hide that, and the workshop items. We're not going to talk about that today because it's really not important. What you really just need to do is press this little button here, create scenario, and write a scenario name. So for this, we are going to name it Broken Arrow Beast Guide. All right. How to master Broken Arrow Scenario Builder. All right, and you have a few other things that you need to make a decision on here on the right hand side, and it's really just your map. Okay, so obviously all the base maps that have already come out, and at the top they have a test map, best map. it's not so best. I don't personally love it, so we're not actually going to use it on this one. I'm sure you can check it out yourself, but it's basically just a empty map. So we're not going to waste time with it, but name your map, and then obviously you will press create. Okay, so one thing here, you can load in kind of the battle groups that you've already been working under, um, and load that into the deck. It'll just bring it into the scenario, and you can help it build it, but it's really not essential. You don't even need to select that. Over here is just some logistical things, browse folder, publish a Steam network, and make a local copy. Again, all of this is much more for sharing your scenarios rather than using this scenario editor as kind of a practice guide and capability test. So we're just going to ignore that over here. I do suggest instead of playing scenario, you can actually edit it after you press play, but you can play it after you edit it. So you'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. You're just going to click edit scenario. Okay, sweet. Now that we're all loaded into the map, we're going to go ahead and pick an area that we kind of want to experiment with. I like this area over here, so that's what I'm going to roll with. Okay, so really when you're looking at all these options on the left-hand side, I will draw you to the attention of really just these two options, which you really just need to be aware of in order to build scenarios and start using the editor. Over to the right, they have a lot of management tabs that are really useful as you kind of play around with this. But really, the main tab is just going to be this do unit tab. So here you can obviously filter by whatever you want. Green beret, you can look it up individually. You can select recon, infantry, and it'll show you everything in alphanumerical order for all the US and Russian units, unless you specify otherwise. So if I specify US infantry, it'll show me just that US infantry. You can also select by division or specialty, and it'll go ahead and show you those exact units. But for right now, I'm just going to keep it very general, very broad, and I'm going to start placing down the friendly units. I usually play as US, so I'm going to go ahead and put down some friendly US units. Now, what is great about this editor, and really is key, is you get to test around all these different capabilities. So one big thing, one really useful tool is the Strike Eagle. So if I wanted to practice my Strike Eagle strikes onto the enemy, I could spawn a Strike Eagle. And this editor is really awesome in the fact that it's pretty similar to any other program where you can, select it and you can copy and paste using C and V, and then you can keep doing that C and V, and you can multiply your units so that you kind of have a sitting arsenal of these strikes. Now we'll go into the inspector tab of these units, so keep in mind these are friendly units because they're in blue. Now if I wanted to make an enemy unit, which I'll go ahead and show you right now, I like to use the Armada. So gonna look up the Armada as the enemy unit, and I'm going to place it down. Now you'll notice it's blue right now, so it's not really an enemy unit. We'll fix that real quick. You just got to go to this tab under the inspector. Whenever you select a unit, it'll pull up this inspector tab over here on the right hand side of whatever unit you selected or group of units you select, and you can adjust a whole bunch of different things like its position. You really don't need to move that at all. You can just move that physically. Okay, you can position its height. For a lot of these things, if they're ground units and stuff like that, they'll spawn, or air units that spawn on the ground, they'll actually spawn in the air when you start this up. Anyways, you can adjust things like the health, so you can put it at 50% health or whatever. We'll keep it at 100% because I'd want to test the armor and how they hold up against the Strike Eagle, which for you guys who have played this game, it's not very good at all. You can also put their group names. That's just going to make it easier for editing specific scenarios if you would like them to execute certain tasks, which is going to fall under the script editor. I'm not going to touch too much on that today, but it's something to be aware of. Not super useful at this point. But the biggest thing is you're going to have to assign it a player. So all the alpha players are your friendly players, 1 through 5, just like in a normal match. I'm going to assign it to Bravo player 1. Okay. For the rest of these, not super important to go over. I do like to tend to hold the fire. That way, they don't really fire at anything off the bat. And I really am just using these kind of as dummies. So that's why I put them on hold fire. Supply and cargo, you shouldn't worry about that right now. Cargo group name either, but you might want to mess with maybe the mods by giving them certain capabilities to see how maybe their additional armor fares against some of your weapon systems. Now, target waypoint, we actually don't have that option because we haven't had a target waypoint set yet on the map. And then waypoint color priority, that's just going to be when we do place a waypoint, the priority of the waypoints. You can make your units immortal. You can adjust their percentage of ammo as far as 50% if you want them to act like they've already been in battle. But really the most useful things are going to be these two right here: infinite ammo and infinite fuel, and those specifically for friendly units. So if I'm testing out units, it might be useful that I just put them, or at least some of them, on infinite fuel, infinite ammo, so I can just keep practicing those airstrikes, which is what I'm trying to do now, without having them fall out of the sky. So for the enemy unit, really this is all. The only other thing I like to do is I like to put the percentage of ammo to 0. That way, again, there is no way that they are attacking anything. They are very stagnant. I'm not giving them any waypoints to move to just yet. So they just sit there and pretty much die for my airstrikes. Not that the Armada can attack air anyways, but there are certain units that can. So, play around with that as you will. Next thing I'll say is you can go ahead and copy and paste like we were talking before. I like to make them in a nice little formation over here of a tank platoon, lay them out as such, and then I like to copy and paste that multiple times over so I have different areas to strike and test out these capabilities. So I'll put them over here, and as you can see, as I place these down, on the right side, object manager, this is every single object that you have in the scenario editor, and you can do a few things here. You can lock it. Really all that does is it prevents you from selecting those specific units, and if you click drag, every unit that you select, you still have the same options as you would before. It will just apply them to all those units that you selected. So if I wanted to select those, you can see them here in the object manager, and I can lock all of them. All this really buys for you is if you already set them and you don't want to move and accidentally select them, then that's kind of what it's for. Not super useful for what we're trying to get out of this, but something to note as well. Again, copy and pasting, and then you can also hide these. Again, this is just during the editor, so when you actually play the game, they'll be visible. But right now, I think I set up enough targets in the impact area, and now we're going to begin to finalize our scenario so we can practice some of those strikes. The other tab that you're really going to want to know about is the object creator. Now they have a lot of cool things in here, and really the first thing, and probably the first thing I would do when I get into this game, is you're going to set up your camera. So this is where your camera is actually going to spawn in when you play the scenario. So I like to give it a little bit of height. Right around 250 isn't too bad, just so you're not spawning your camera on the ground and you're in the general area that you want to play. As far as waypoints now, I will show you one waypoint just because I do think it's useful if you want to try practicing engaging in certain ways, moving targets, right? So I'm gonna put waypoint 1, I'm gonna put waypoint 2 down just to show you those. Some other interesting things, you can obviously select some props, and you can actually change what that prop is. So I think it starts out as a Connex, but you can quickly just select the props for the group and then select whatever prop out of there you want. They have a few different options. Okay, so now I'm going to briefly show you how to use the waypoint. So I'm going to place two waypoints, and this is useful if you want to build a scenario where you're firing at moving targets. So we're going to go ahead and select this group of tanks by just clicking and dragging. We're going to press a target waypoint. So as you can see, it assigns them a waypoint color of red. And for this group, I'm going to put their target waypoint as 2, and note that they also have the waypoint is blue. So that's a useful trick. And then one last thing I'm gonna do before we test this scenario out with some moving units, some stationary units, but we also have some of our units that are maxed out and have infinite fuel and infinite ammo, so I can practice these strikes as many times as I want. So the last thing I'll tell you to do is go ahead and get your new unit, whatever team you're gonna have playing in this scenario. I would go ahead and grab a recon unit. So I like to use the RQ 170 Sentinel. Okay, so that's how you can identify these targets. You can laze these targets if you'd like to practice lasing targets and firing munitions at them that way. And then don't forget to add their infinite fuel. Again, it looks like it's going to spawn on the ground, but I promise you it will spawn up in the air. And so that's pretty much everything. There's a lot of other options here that you can kind of dig through that really aren't important. I will mention the team manager tab. It just kind of shows you some of those players. If this was going to be a full scenario that you wanted to play or share with other people, you can put things like deck restriction and so on and so forth. You can lock it. And all of that. They also have Metal Manager, and then some other really cool stuff that, again, isn't really necessary. I will say they have a script, so this is the method of kind of controlling the units and in placing some of the other things. You can see some of the commands and the things that you can control on the scenario script, and all you have to do to pull up this node list, just right click and this node list pops up, and then you have a list of options. And then the only other thing is you have to kind of put the start node here. So some of the base nodes, if you do that with a start node here, and then you can follow the path onto a bunch of different options. Not to mention they have a whole manual if you're looking into this and this is something you would like to use. They do have all of this available to show you how to use each of those nodes. But back to the scenario editor, I think at this point we are pretty much good to go, and I'm gonna go ahead and press play. Alright, so here we go, and keep in mind we spawned in where we placed our camera, and we have the signal, which means we can identify all of these different targets. I'm gonna go ahead and laze just in case, you want to use that to guide in some of your munitions. And here we have our supply of Strike Eagles, so we'll just go ahead and practice a few bombing runs. And if you want to use this to practice things that you don't usually get to do in game, usually, sending a Strike Eagle, especially with the air ADA environment, sometimes it's kind of hard to get those repetitions. But you can also do cool things like test out vehicle armor, since none of these vehicles will actually fire back because I give them 0% ammo. And bombs away and good strike. So yeah, that's a good example of kind of how I use it to practice some of my bombing runs. And keep in mind, we do have these tanks that move from their starting position because we gave them that waypoint. But yeah, you would have to strike it while they're moving in order to kind of, adjust fire if you wanted to strike a moving target. So and again, I'm using air this to practice a lot of air strikes, but you can really use it with your ground units to test out the different kinds of armor and how many strikes it takes to, let's say, use an Abrams to kill a T-14 or so on and so forth. And it looks like both of these that I used were the ones without infinite ammo, but I'll just go ahead and show you real quick that they do have infinite ammo after these strikes. So, and there you go. There you go. You still have your 12 Rockeye CBU 87. So that'll conclude everything I wanted to go over today. Hopefully, this was a little bit informative as far as how to use the scenario editor, the basic controls, and then kind of what you can practice, without having to go into a game and potentially risk losing a lot of points in using different platforms that you're not really familiar with, or if you just want to test out a unit and see what their munitions look like, this is a great place to do it. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.